What is up, everyone? Back here with another video. In today's video, we're going to be going over a Pokemon that I think is incredibly underrated in Scarlet and Violet competitive, Sylveon. So Sylveon is a Pokemon that really has a lot of potential in competitive and typically gets overlooked a lot of the time, even though it's still really good. And this format really feels no different, although it does have some really high placements when it has been featured on teams. So what I want to do first is break down why I think the Pokemon's good individually, then talk about the teams that have featured it, and then talk about the sets that Sylveon typically runs, so you guys are familiar with that. Anyways, going into this, pretty much when it comes to Sylveon, right? Sylveon is a Pokemon with a pretty high special attack stat, pretty high special defense stat, decent HP stat, and kind of weak defense, right? And Sylveon basically is a Pokemon that really does one of two things, and it's really either focuses on dealing immediate damage or kind of sets up to sweep the opponent in the future. And that kind of depends on your team and how you're running it. I personally think it's really good because it checks a lot of common meta threats in, like obviously the meta game right now. Meowscarada, Garchomp, Hydreigon, Murkrow. That's just a few, and that's literally just naming a few. Grimmsnarl. There are a bunch of other Pokemon too. I don't want to just keep listing off names, but yeah, it's obviously very consistent to a lot of Pokemon. And Dark types are just especially good in this format as well. Sylveon is able to pressure all those pretty consistently. Now, where does it really perform well, and on what teams does it perform well? So first off, we're going to take a look at the Limitless tournament. So first off, for Sylveon's first big tournament outing, it finished second place. Now, you guys will notice the Throat Spray set is probably the most popular out of all the ones we're going to be looking at. But it did end up having a really good performance, finishing, in that second place team. So it is a very, very good team overall. And I think that the Sylveon really helped it because it kind of gave it a strong special attacker and really allowed it to pressure the things it needed to next to other partners. And also here, let's go down. I think there was one other Sylveon. There's another Sylveon in top 16 as well that ended up placing pretty well too, with Hyper Voice, Terra Blast, Substitute, and Throat Spray again. So you guys can see Throat Spray is like the most common, the most common item that you'll have with it, and that just pairs really well with Hyper Voice, which is the main move it always has on it, where it just boosts its special attack immediately. Now, Terra Fire is definitely the most popular set on Sylveon, mostly because it just counters the weaknesses the Fairy has, so it just helps it a lot. Next up is the team that finished where is it? I finished here. Oh yeah, I finished 9th, Shohei Kimura's team. And it was another Dondozo team. So 2 placements with it already have had Dondozo, or it's been with Dondozo. This one was interesting. It was using Babri Berry. So Babri was actually, so it couldn't get hit hard by Goldingo, and it could just sit there. And it also was Terrafire. So it just had a lot of Goldingo hate pretty much. It was also running Quick Attack. I'm not sure I like this set the most, honestly. I think the Babri set's probably the weakest out of all the Sylveon sets. But you have to know, you obviously have to bring it up because it did do well, right? That being said, though, you can kind of see Terrafire as like the almost default pick for the Sylveon. Obviously, like in the Limitless tournament with Aaron's team, because he didn't have a Terra Blast on it, he went for the Terra Fairy on it. Now, for the Nina Pokeros, Scarlet and Violet Free for All 59, it ended up placing again pretty decently high. Well, decently high considering it's a Pokemon that's not being used that much. It actually had a lot of decent placements too in like the top 32, which was all cut. So overall, I'd say it performed pretty decently. It did end up kind of fizzling out towards the end of the tournament, but I think that was mostly just because of like, a lot of the players, but it did end up getting 3rd at least on this team, right? So 3rd is still pretty good. It keeps finishing in like the top 4 basically. And Sylveon here with Terra Fairy, this is the same as Aaron Trailer's team actually that we looked at. So it's really the same kind of team, but Sylveon again plays consistently well. And again, all the dragons, Murkrow, everything are running around, so it works really well into the teams. Then we have another Sylveon pop up in finals of the next Nina Pokerose tournament, which was again had like a lot of players in it. I think this one had like 300 or something, and it ended up being a Life Orb Sylveon with Terra Flying. Now this one's definitely the weirdest one out of all of them. I wouldn't necessarily say I would expect to see this, although Life Orb Sylveon could definitely have some potential, so I'd consider that. But it'd probably be Terra Fire would be better here. But overall, I think that it shows that Sylveon is very potent and it can fit on a lot of different teams, right? And this one wasn't a Dondozo team finally, so it ended up breaking the mold of only being on Dondozo teams. Then we look at this tournament, and Lunar ends up bringing it to a third place finish at this tournament, and then there's also a fifth place team with it as well. And Lunar ended up running the Throat Spray set with Terra Blast and Quick Attack as well. And this set's obviously just meant to do damage with Sylveon, and Throat Spray was the main kind of, it was the main item that was used to enable all these Sylveons that you've seen. However, I want to talk about a few other Sylveons I thought were pretty solid, but obviously the Throat Spray set is the most consistent one. I have a lot of different moves here. You could put Substitute, you could put Quick Attack, you could put Yawn. Like, there's a bunch of different moves you can run on the Throat Spray set, so for that reason, it's the first one I'm going to bring up here. For the second set that's really relevant for it, it's going to be the Choice Specs set. Now, I think this set's a little bit underrated compared to the other ones. I think Specs is really crazy, and having the ability to Terra Fire into Terra Blast is, like, really good. And as well, too, if you're running a Spec set and you want to run Terra Fairy, you could run Shadow Ball over Terra Blast. But normally, Terra Fire with Sylveon is so good that it's really hard to turn down. So if you have the Terra Fire Specs Terra Blast, like, you can snipe so many different Pokemon that normally would pressure you. Gives you good counterplay into steals, and also Sleep Talk is for Amoonguss. You could theoretically run another coverage move on it, but like there's not too much that would give you value there. And having Sleep Talk to just give you like that counterplay into Amoonguss if you get Spored is really nice. And also too, Hyper Beam is just a strong nuke with specs. It's something you could definitely take advantage of. Then finally, the Leftover set. I think the Leftover set is definitely very underutilized right now as well. Obviously, this would be with Terra Fire. I guess if you're running Terra Fairy, you could run Substitute over Terra Blast. But typically, I'd say Terra Fire is really nice for the coverage. Overall, I'd say Sylveon really likes Leftovers because it can heal off of it pretty consistently. And you can make this thing pretty bulky on the defensive end, even though it looks weak to start with. And you can definitely leverage it to really get a bunch of damage off once you start setting up Calm Minds. It's a really strong win condition that I think will be tougher for opponents to deal with. Obviously, it'll be open sheet, but I do think that Sylveon overall is a really strong setup sweeper that just like hasn't had a team that has like fully supported that capability yet, which is why you're seeing the Throat Spray set. Like the Throat Spray does give you more immediate value, whereas like a Calm Mind set, you have to take time to set it up, right? And I think that's a difficult thing for a lot of players, but I think once there's a bit more like focus on developing Sylveon as a Pokemon, it's going to be really, really strong. I think it's strong already, right? Like we've seen a lot as a Dondoza partner and then kind of shifting to be more on these like balance teams or just, different kinds of teams. I think we'll continue to see that. And I would definitely keep an eye out for this Pokemon. I think it's incredibly strong. I think it's a Pokemon that you will see more and could potentially even win an event. It hasn't won one yet, but it's getting really close consistently. And I think that it's like one of the next Pokemon on track to win. So I really think it is super underrated. If you guys enjoyed this video and this breakdown, please make sure to let me know. I would definitely love to do this with some other Pokemon as well if you guys enjoy this kind of content. As always, guys, thank you so much for all the support. Make sure to check the links down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.